I've got some vintage, classy vintage, and some classy modern gear. What sounds best? How do they compare to each other? Let's find out. I'm going to go through a bunch of songs, tell you about the sound. By the end of this, you will know what these things sound like. Okay, let's just do some technical stuff. Classic Sansui 771 from 1975. The heyday silver-faced vintage equipment and a really good bit of vintage kit, Sansui. This is only 32 watts, but like a lot of vintage stuff, it kind of it's louder and more powerful than you would think. And that Heed power amp, 2012, I believe. If you look up their website, it says made in the heart of the EU. That's literally what it says. So it's made in Europe. I don't know exactly where these are manufactured or who's designing them, but they're a well-respected company, and I can tell you this is a class bit of amplification. I think you probably pay maybe like £800 for something like this. The Sansui on the second-hand world, who knows, these things are sort of increasing all the time and so collectible, but maybe £350, something like this. I mean, it's 50 years old, still working. Sansui amazingly seem to work, you know, when they're very old. I've got loads of them and they're all working, apart from one which has an intermittent right channel. And Linn Wakonda Preamp, yeah, that's actually made in Scotland. Hang on, I'll tell you her name. Marie Ferguson, because it's written on the bottom. Whoever's put it together or, you know, checked it, that's her name. Anyway, let's do the sound and you'll find out what these things sound like, because every time I do these things I think, oh, is this going to be an interesting thing to do? And it always is. It always turns out to be more interesting than I thought. What I've been doing, playing more or less the same songs. Man Overboard, Blondie, first Blondie album. Tin Pan Alley, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Walk on the Wild Side. What's the other one? Songbird, Fleetwood Mac. But putting those on and putting that on and putting those on and putting that on and ding-donging like that, and sometimes changing speakers, yes. So, you know, quite a comprehensive testing this has been, I've been doing. Okay, first song, Man Overboard, Blondie. Let me say this nice and clear so everyone knows, you know, those two will give you more detail. They've got more detailed information. You know, it's not surprising, you know, but these are, you know, modern equipment. This is a 1974. This has its own charm for sure, which I'll tell you about later. But cleaning them, you know, clean, tight, mid, bass, treble, everything is nice and clean. When I listen to this song, Man Overboard, on here, the differences are bigger bass, literally a bigger bass than this. I mean, it's still quite detailed. This has got a lot of nice detailed bass for something from 1974. It's good at that. Of all the Japanese stuff, this is good. But it'll be but it will be kind of bigger. I don't want to say fatter, I just want to say bigger, because fatter denotes, you know, unclear and, you know, bulbous and, you know, not ill defined. It's not fatter like that. It's just bigger. There's just more of it in relation. This is what a lot of vintage stuff does. It's bigger. And the vocals will be bigger on there. Just be kind of more forward, louder. This is more in the room. I mean, the truth is, both of these are class acts. They're both good. So the distinctions I'm giving you are just by way of, you know, giving you the information. It's not like one of them's good and one of them isn't good. This isn't the case here at all. But okay, let's go on. Second song, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Tin Pan Alley. Now it's got a big sound stage, that song. Let's say that, a big sound stage. but it's quite Spartan. There's not lots going on in it. And they kind of favoured this Sansui because this got a lot more, not a lot more, but it's got a bit more alive air and kind of added up to a bit more atmosphere on that song. And, you know, on the busier song, Man Overboard, this was the winner because there's so much going on. You started hearing things that you'd never heard before. You know, that's quite, you know, that's what you want, basically. But when the song was a more Spartan song, this was actually better. And this has got a bit more life, you might say that. It's just got a bit more air and life. And this has got a ton of detail. I mean, this Heed, I did also compare this with a Name Nap 50 power amp without going into a whole review of these two. That's better. It's just better. Yeah, it's clearer. It's just better. Okay, what else did we do? Okay, I did Walk on the Wild Side, Lou Reed. Now, that's a Spartan song. If you know, I'm sure you know that song too. Both of these are giving me, you know, I'm hearing the bass. If anything, I'm getting more bass off of here, and I'm really hearing that string of that upright bass. It's got an upright bass in that song. And probably, you know, this is well articulated, but this is just a bit bigger, and this has still got more detail. Now, at that bit in that song where the girls are going do 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 do, this one, I started to think to myself, oh, this sounds very nice. This sounds nice and warm. Sounds warm, you know. But you got to say it's started to sound a little bit synthetic. You know, it just didn't sound exactly like girls singing alone. It sounded like a little bit like girls singing just slightly through some synthesizer, you know. And I do mean slightly. I mean very slightly. But that's the warmth. That's literally when they talk about the vintage sound and the warm sound. It's like those harmonies getting a bit more bigger and warmer and sort of meshed together and just having kind of a bigger effect, but not being utterly faithful. There's kind of the vintage effect. There's kind of the vintage sound. You know, I kind of like it. I mean, it's not madly wrong. I don't want to give you the wrong impression here that this sounds like everything's coming through a synthesizer. It's just a tiny bit, but it stood out really in that song. You know how that, you know. But this is clear. It's detailed. Let me have a look at my notes here. What have I got in here? Okay, let me say this. I'm enjoying this sound. It's just not quite making my heart sing, and that's because the vocals on here are just a bit bigger. So I'm just, what's happening is I'm listening to these and I'm hearing lots of detail and I'm following all that detail, and it's quite fun. But on here I'm not getting so much detail, but I'm following the voice. Now, I had a friend round here today and we were listening to these, this one, this one, this one, this one, ding dong, like this, right? At first, I went from that Sansui to the Heed and the Linn. She first said, oh, that's better. They're better. Then we played that, then we went back to that, then we went back to that, then we went back to that. In the end, she kind of agreed with me that this was getting a bit more involvement. So, you know, that's what happened. Even though this is not uninvolving and it's not particularly clinical or anything like that, but there's a funny thing whereby, you know, if the voice is just, for me, you know, maybe I should just talk for myself, you know, but if the voice is just drawing your attention because it's bigger and it's nicely articulated, that becomes the focus of it becomes the way I'm getting in. That's the route in, you know. What else have I got here? Heed, clean mid-range, clean bass, everything's clean. La, 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 la. One thing as tiny criticism, see, these criticisms are super tiny. When you hear a rim shot on a drum, you know, that the stick on the edge of the drum, I just didn't think they came out super good on here. And they normally sound delightful because it's such a nice, sharp, woody sound. It almost always sounds great on almost everything. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't think these rim shots are quite as magic as they should be. But you know, what am I going to say? They're both good. They're both good. Let me make that clear. I got here the Sansui sounds a little bit. I mean, a little bit like you've got the loudness on, just a bit. I mean, just a bit. What else have we got here? Yes, let's just say this about soundstage. Yeah, I mean, that's an amp. Let's look inside that amp. That's from 1975. The soundstage is better. Let's have a look inside this Heed. You see how clean and simple that is. And then take a look inside the Linn. Now, when it comes to real placement, and I mean that, you know, I mean the real placement, not things having space between them, because that Sansui puts a lot of space between things, but it doesn't place them perfectly. There are some sounds that I thought, oh, I think that was meant to be on right there on the right, and it didn't seem to be happening right on this Sansui. It's probably just age, you know. But if you want detailed soundstage, that is really going to do it for you. Even though that puts space between everything, it just doesn't place them that good, you know. It's also, this is meant to be a radio. It's got all these buttons, you know. All these buttons do not help your preamp make a clean sound, quite frankly, you know. It's incredible that a thing like this sounds damn good. You know, it's almost like, you know, having a car with that's got 8 doors and 5, you know, just crammed with features. It's like, you know, it's like a compromised thing, you know, but it does sound good. I've got to tell you that. Okay, I think that's probably it. Have I given you the picture? I hope I have. If I was going to a desert island, I'd be torn. I'd probably take that. But I'm a sucker for Sansui. Something about it that just gets me. But this is absolute class gear. This is classy gear, and this is better than the name, as I said. Ton of detail. Ton of nice detail. Okay, that's probably it. I'll put myself on Patreon if anyone's interested. There's more stuff on there. I'll be building more stuff too. Okay, that's it. Thanks. Bye for now.